What's the deal with ADHD?
So attention deficit disorder, it is defined by a challenge in executive functioning in the brain. So your brain tells you do this, and yet you don't. It's the regulation of dopamine is different in brains of people with ADHD compared to people without ADHD. One easy test to figure out if you have ADHD is when you drink coffee, is it easier for you to concentrate, and are you more calm as a result of coffee? There's a bunch of medication you could take: Adderall, Ritalin, Concerta, Vyvanse. I don't take any. I personally don't recommend it. Obviously, there's exceptions. One of the songs I'm working on right now is about this topic. Read to You is about dyslexia. This other song, Fire on My Chest, is about ADHD. At the same time, kids with ADHD, they're not stupid. They're very, very smart. And they can hyperfocus on the things that they care about and that they're into. And so you see me doing this all the time. I hyperfocus on things, but like, if I don't want to do something, it's so difficult to get myself to focus on it. And you just gotta, exactly, accept yourself. Say, hey, it's fine. I have dyslexia. I have ADHD. Cool. What now? Well, I'm going to listen to audiobooks. I'm going to convince kids in my class to come over to my house and study together, but really they're going to read the book and I'm going to listen and explain what I understood. And gosh darn it, if there's no audiobooks, I'll just build my own software that makes it easier for me to focus because it highlights the words on the screen as it reads. And like, even if I get distracted because there's a donut, it's still reading in my ears and I can come back and I don't need to restart my place. I'm going to commit to friends that I'm going to do it. And if I'm not, I'm going to run. I'm going to work out really hard every single day because by doing that, I don't need to take medication. It's on a spectrum. So, different people who wear glasses have different prescriptions because they have different intensity of, how their eye is formed. Some people are very ADHD. Some people are like mildly ADHD. If you think you have it and you're still in school, I highly recommend to go get diagnosed. It is helpful to have the diagnosis because it helps you understand yourself a little bit more. That's definitely the case for me.
There's a thing I've heard on the grapevine recently, which is that, and I'm not sure to what extent this is true at all, but that loads of people are now, or the straw man would go that like loads of people now are self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD because they think I struggle to focus when I'm bored of what I'm doing. But everyone struggles to focus when they're bored of what they're doing. So like, why are we trying to medicalize something which is very natural? I don't know anything about this topic, so I'm just curious.
No, it's a good question. So interestingly, dyslexia and ADHD are similar in this regard, where it's an invisible learning difference. You don't see it in a person. Everybody has challenges focusing. Yes. And by the way, so the other problem is like we can't measure these things well, right? Like I said, ADHD is caused by irregulation of dopamine in the brain, but like we have no idea what's going on in the neural cleft at all. So it's not something that you can measure on a spectrum. Dyslexia, the best literature indicates that it's defined by, there's a thing called mini columns in the brain, where if they're really short, you have autism. If they're really long, you have dyslexia, and further apart. So hypothetically, eventually we'll have a way of measuring people's dyslexia. Dopamine regulation for ADHD. So yes, there might be more ADHD, less ADHD. You might cross the spectrum, whatever. I have friends who find it very easy to focus on things, and they tell themselves they want to do this thing. Like their behavior is very aligned with their brain's instructions to them. By the way, people with ADHD are much more susceptible to addiction. They have much more probability of having really big mood swings, being super happy or super mad in a very short period of time. Interestingly, they don't hold grudges very much. Very happy-go-lucky often, considered irresponsible often. And there's a bunch of reasons why someone might be like this. It might be that you didn't sleep enough. It might be that you have a headache. It might be that your period. It doesn't matter what. But worthwhile to go potentially get diagnosed. We just don't know enough about the brain.
Fair play. What does the diagnosis involve?
You go and you talk to a psychiatrist. And if you're a kid, you'll be there for like 6 hours, maybe over 2 sessions. And they'll give you a bunch of like little tests, and they'll see how difficult or not difficult it is for you to complete them. And it could be something like, playing with cubes, or often it includes some sort of IQ test. For dyslexia, I can just tell you mine. I scored in every category in the IQ tests that I had to get them like every 3 years. I scored in the 99th percentile on every single category except for phonemic awareness and short-term memory, where I would score in like the 48th percentile. And so that discrepancy between that category and all the other categories is what defines me as being dyslexic. With ADHD, there's other categories that are impacted, either when it comes to this test or just like behavioral. ADHD is a little bit more behavioral, and so the challenge is that it is subjective, not objective, whether you have ADHD, but a professional is the person assessing.
Nice. And so what are the things that, like, let's say someone feels like they do have ADHD, or if they have been diagnosed with it, beyond the medication side of things, what are the things that you can do to improve your focus?
Great. So one is, now you know you have a problem. So for me, it was a lot more stark with dyslexia. And I was so happy to learn I had dyslexia. I finally had a place to hang my hat. And I go, see, I'm not lazy. I'm not stupid. My brain just works a little bit differently. And that's okay. And so it made it easy for me to accept myself and not like tell myself I was bad. So you asked me, the dichotomy between like self-acceptance and, working towards your goals. At a very young age, I had a lot of self-acceptance. I was like, I'm not stupid. I'm not lazy. I'm awesome. I just need to prove it to people. And that's okay. I have dyslexia. I'll figure out how to manage it. And so now you can tell yourself, it's okay. I'm not lazy. I'm not stupid. I'm not trying to be difficult. I have ADHD. It's a little bit more difficult for me to focus. So I need to use other mechanisms. I need to journal. I'll need to use my calendar obsessively. I need to have commitments with other people. I need to have my phone have the child safety lock, even though I'm an adult, because I can't trust myself with Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. I better avoid alcohol and drugs because I have a predisposition towards addiction. If I feel myself getting angry really quickly, I should remind myself that I have ADHD, and it's probably not as big of a deal as I think. So maybe I should practice some breathing exercises. And when my family knows I have ADHD, and this is the really big challenge when it comes to invisible disabilities. If you're in a wheelchair, no one's going to get mad at you for not being able to walk down the stairs. But if you have ADHD and you didn't do your homework, your mom will be like, Cliff, why are you being so lazy? Tyler's not being like you. You're a bad kid. No, you're not a bad kid. You just need a different framework. In the same way that someone with glasses, just the front of their eyeballs are just a little, they have a different lens.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. It's just challenging because it's an invisible learning difference.